All right, here we go. Once again, welcome to another Houston Roundball Review presents Folks Talking Sports. I'm the main host. That's going to change hopefully at some point this year. Hint, hint. But I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Joining me right now is Willy Gibson from WHTG Sports in Columbus, Ohio, from the Ohio State University, and one of the youngsters of the group, Mr. James Mueller of the Daily Cougar, the sports editor for the Cougar. Guys, how are y'all?
Good, sir. How about you?
I'm doing okay. We're going to get into it. Let's just start right off the top here because we got to talk. I want to touch on the NCAA convention. Of course, some Cougs discussion, Houston Cougars discussion, some Big 12 news with them meeting in Vegas last month. But off the top, young Mr. Hardaway, Anthony Hardaway, had a blow up. You want to call it a blow up? I mean, after their loss to SMU, home loss in Memphis, the Tigers are 3-4 in, I guess now, an average American Athletic Conference this season. He was asked a question by Jeff Calkins from the Daily Memphian. Can he fix this? And y'all heard it. I'm not going to play the clip because of the F-bombs in it. Penny was hot. He was upset. He questioned, he said to the media in attendance of the post game, stop asking me dumb questions. Y'all know how I work. Y'all know how we are. Y'all know we'd be better if we were healthy. We're not healthy right now. SMU was healthy. If we were healthy, we would be a better team. Y'all know that. Stop questioning my guys. They're playing hard. They're working hard. They're doing the best they can. Thoughts on what he said, how he said it? Do you have a problem with what he said first? I might really care about how he said it, but do you have a problem with what he said? James, you first.
Yeah, I mean, I had two big problems. One, even at the beginning of the season, Memphis wasn't doing anything when they had, most of their roster at that time. So, to say, we'd be a lot better with them. Yeah, it's true, but you still weren't finding that success that people expected, being ranked a top 15 team when the season started with all your guys. And then second, I mean, I've seen it pointed out, and just being covering Houston. I mean, Houston's got about as bad as injuries as you can, and they're 16-2. Injuries are a part of the game. They always happen, and teams have to find ways to overcome it. And there's plenty of teams that do and find success. So to use, that as your main escape while you aren't winning games, I think it's just avoiding a deeper problem.
Willie, Mr. Gibson, what do you say?
Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with what he said, nor the way he said it, because he focused on, you're coming at me. You're coming at me, writing these stories about me. You're questioning me. Yeah, he talked about his roster. He talked about he started 4 freshmen and things of that nature. But, I mean, the thing about it, what I've learned in the years I've been in media is media members, some tend to be a little thin-skinned. They can dish it, but when it's reciprocated on them, it's kind of like, whoa. I mean, what? I don't have a problem with what he said. I don't have a problem with how he said it. He said, "Hey, stop writing stories about me. Stop asking me these questions." Point blank. Period.
That's an interesting take on it, and I don't have a problem. I'd have more of a problem with it if this were, what was it, 2 years ago when he said that we wanted all the smoke. We want all the smoke. Mm-hmm. When they had James Wiseman and they were loaded. Supposedly loaded with the incoming talent, a national favorite for championship, all that stuff. But we want the smoke. Well, it didn't work. He didn't say that this year. It wasn't Penny who picked Memphis to be whatever it was. James said top 12. Well, I think some polls had them preseason top 7, top 8 in the country. It wasn't Penny who did that. And James, in the conference preseason poll, UVA was picked to win the conference, not Memphis. Mm-hmm. So that's a coach's poll. So the coaches weren't expecting great things from Memphis because of the youth, because of Penny as coach, and who is coaching Houston, Kelvin Sampson. So there's a difference there. So I don't know, Jeff Calkins, And I'll make a blanket statement, agree with it or not, but there are some folks in media who take it personal, who try to be personal in their questions and their reporting. I'm too old for that. You know, when I was maybe James' age, I didn't know any better and took some things personal and all that. Brush it off, because every so often, and James is witness to it because he participates Zoom calls now, but even in the face-to-face, in-person media session with Coach Sampson sometimes his retort or whatever to a question, sometimes to me, is blunt and makes you feel like, damn, coach, that kind of hurt, kind of thing. But then I'm like, that's coach being coach. He's being direct in his response to me. And it's on me. After all this time, I know how he is. I don't take it personal. I don't feel bad. He's has some quick-witted response to other colleagues. I'm like, woo. And you can kind of feel in the voice of the colleague. Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question that way. Thing. Yeah. That is that's where we are. So Penny, it's a national program. He was a national guy. People had a lot of expectations for the program this season, coming off the NIT championship, which, NIT, I don't really care about that personally. I mean, whatever. So they are underachieving. The biggest issue, and James, spot on, the direct comparison is within the conference. Houston is still winning, excelling with injuries to key people, to key players. Yes, Memphis is without DeAndre Williams and Landers Nolley, won 4 games. So that's a problem. That's 2 key guys to their team. Well, Houston's been without Marcus Sasser, Tremont Mark, 1 game, those 2 plus Kyler Edwards. Another game, those 2 plus Jamal Shed. But they're still finding ways to win. So that direct comparison doesn't help Memphis either. But go ahead, Will, what you got?
Well, only to that point, I would say those replacement players or those players that are taking the injured player's spot, they're not freshmen. His point was, I'm starting 4 freshmen. I mean, in March or in January, starting 4 freshmen, I kind of see, it's like, I don't know about that. I think more so his statement was, again, coming at him, but I don't know.
But Will, then I could come back and say, but you recruited those 4 freshmen.
He did. Absolutely.
Okay. So,
without question.
But it also goes to this, and James, you know this full well. UVA's this season's team with the injuries, Coach Sampson is relying on his veterans. Kyler Edwards, senior. Tazi Moore, grad senior. Josh Carlton, grad senior. Fabian White, 5th-year senior. So maybe Houston would be a whole lot different shape if they were injured, these injuries, if he were having to play Ramon Walker, Robbie Armbrester, Javier Francis all the time. And you can have a point there. What do you think about that, James?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I know in a bunch of the press conferences, players have talked about just the leadership and how it's helped them. They talked about how Fabian sent a text to the group, saying, guys, we're going to have to pick up a load since, we're without some key guys, and it's on you. So leadership definitely plays a big role, and I can see that being a lot different if Houston did not have that kind of leadership established in their program from their veterans.
So, and we hear all the time, guys, from media, national media, regarding championship caliber teams, especially, in college. You win with what? Older players. How many championship teams in college have won with freshmen, with a bunch of freshmen? How many? Especially during the one and done era. Not very many.
Very few.
So we once again, we come on you got to have veterans, you got to have great guards, you got to have leadership, experience. That's what they say, right? Come tournament time, got to have experience. Well, right now, Penny and the freshmen, well, they don't have experience. So they're learning on the fly. So I'm kind of straddling the fence there, and I'm not defending Penny. Penny's a grown man. He said what he said. I don't know, Jeff Calkins. I think my issue with Jeff Calkins is he tweeted it out his question and then a semi-quote, an incomplete quote from Penny.
Yep.
And that made the rounds. Then we saw the video when it was more complete. You got a better idea of what Penny said. So, you know, sometimes in Twitter, you can tell the whole story. Well, all the time, you need to tell the whole story. You got to figure a way to the right medium to tell that story, because 280 characters sometimes isn't enough. James, as a youngster, as a sports editor, what do you think about that point of view?
Yeah, for sure. Just because, like you said, we see so many things taken out of context. And, you know, when the quotes came out last night, you know, it was blowing up. But then this morning when I got up, you know, I saw the full video and it changed my opinion a bit because, you know, it adds context. And I know, like, sometimes it might not be the easiest or most favorable thing to do for you, you know, if a coach responds like that, but you got to tell the whole story because you want to be fair and accurate to what actually happened, because then people will start respecting and, you know, viewing you as more trustworthy.
Exactly. Well put, youngster. I feel good with the future of journalism in the hands of young men like James. That kind of answer, young men and young women like James. That's one reason why I started posting the press conferences on my YouTube channel in their entirety, so you get the full spectrum. You don't have to wonder about just a little snippet here and there that you see on Twitter. I put the whole thing up there. You can hear the question, hear the answer, and then judge for yourself. We're still waiting on Tamer Knight. She's going to join when she can. She kind of got on me. Why haven't I been invited lately? Well, you're invited tonight, Mentee, so she'll join when she can. And Yanez is going to try to join by 7:30. But until then, we'll tie that back to Memphis and we'll tie it to Big 12 as well. Houston, I think John Rothstein, I'm not a fan of his, for y'all know some of his antics, but he tweeted out the list of conferences, a conference breakdown for the top 50 in the net. Jim, did you see this? Will, do you see this earlier today?
Yeah, I glanced over it.
Y'all won't be surprised when I say this. One team, top 50 in the net from the American Athletic Conference. One team. One. That's Houston. Okay. ACC 4. Atlantic 10, 1. Big 10, 7. Big 12, 8. And let me stop right there. 8. The Big 12 has, because Oklahoma State got that sham ban by the NCAA, is not eligible for the tournament this year. Okay? So that leaves 9 Big 12 teams. 8 of the 9 are in the top 50 net. 8. In Joe Lunardi's bracketology that he posted this morning, 8, all 8 are in his bracketology. 8 out of 9, that's 89% of your conference, of your eligible teams, is in the tournament. And we go back to the American Athletic Conference, P6, baby, P6, Power 6. 1. And that one, James, will be joining what conference in a few years? The Big 12. So that's where we are. And this is not shade. This is fact. The teams that will be joining will be replacing U of H, Cincinnati, UCF from the American, from Conference USA. They're not in the top 50 in the net. So what the American will be replacing, basketball is not going to be a great shakes compared to the big boys. So, and the thing about the Big 12, because of the 8 teams in the top 50, every Big 12 conference game for the road team counts, if you win on the road in the Big 12, will count as a quadrant 1 victory.
Mm.
All of them. James, I think the American now has maybe 3 if you win at Cincinnati. Maybe just 2. Cincinnati, and because I was going to say Memphis, and I'm not sure where they're teetering now, and maybe SMU, which I doubt, but I have to look at that. That's it. So it's surprising to me because before the season, I'm asked a lot of things. You might get the question as well. How many teams from the conference, the American, do you think will get bids to the tournament? I think we even discussed it back in October. We said, at least 2, maybe 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's Houston. That's it. And if Houston, the only way a team other than Houston will get to the tournament from the American is if they win the conference championship in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
To get 2. That's it. What does that say about the American, Mr. Big Ten?
It says that there's work to do. There's work to do. One team. Yeah. I gotta watch my words because I always get a bad rap of like you said, Mr. Big Ten. I gotta make sure I'm fair and accurate, James. But it's it's not a. It's about right. It's about right for this year. It's about right.
It is, James, and it's hard to defend. I'm not even sure if it's worth defending. What do you think about it? Because I saw Jeff Goodman said referred to the conference this year, the American, as mediocre, and he's being kind this year. Just what are your thoughts on the conference right now? Because flip side, the AAC women's basketball has 2, South Florida and Central Florida in the tournament. Who'd have thought that? Go ahead, James.
Yeah, sort of like you said, the conference on the men's basketball side is in shambles with the American, and especially when you're gonna in the next year or so, who knows when, but in the next few years at least, you're gonna have your most consistent program over the last 5 years that was your biggest threat to make a run in the tournament gone. You're gonna lose Cincinnati, UCF, who Cincinnati has put together some good teams in the past, and they've typically been one of the better, higher quality teams in the American. So you're losing that already. It's just hard to fathom, especially because there's conferences out there that should have a lot or look a lot worse than the American, but especially with the American being the Power 6, like you say.
Case in point. Mountain West, 4 teams in the top 50. West Coast Conference, 4 teams in the top 50. Big East, 6 teams in the top 50. Those 3 conferences are not P6, Commissioner Resco. Basketball is a little different. You don't want to say maybe, what do they call it? Power 7, mid 7, or whatever you want to call it. But Big East 6, Mountain West 4, West Coast Conference 4, the American uno. Let's have some good news, some happier times, happier discussion. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, reported earlier this week that the Big 12 met in Vegas, must be nice, last month, with new members, representatives from U of H, UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, to discuss the divisional format. James, I'm going to come to you first. What are your thoughts on the discussion of the Big 12 splitting into 2 7-team divisions? And this premise, the planning of it, James, is as if Texas and Oklahoma will be in the Big 12 through 2024-25, which I still don't think that's going to happen, but it's got a plan for it anyway. James, what are your thoughts on the 2 divisions of 7 teams each?
Yeah, I figured, assuming Texas and Oklahoma stay in, they'd have to do something like that because you have 14 teams. You'd have to get it to, that SEC, Pac-12, Big Ten scenario where you got different divisions because you can't just have 14 teams just sort of scrambled. One interesting thing from the report, what I found funny because it's not going to happen, but a lot of people are calling for, Texas and Oklahoma to be in the same division so they don't meet in the conference championship. But I mean, the Big 12, that's their biggest moneymaker. If that's possible to have that conference championship, they want it because that's going to draw the most attention. But in terms of overall, I think it's going to happen. I think it makes the most sense. Houston fans, if Texas and Oklahoma stay in, which I'm more side with Kris, and I don't see them staying through the 2025. Houston fans would be happy though, because in the projections they got Texas and Houston in the same bracket, and that's always someone that U of H fans are always wanting a piece of. So we'll see.
Well, what do you think about that? The two 7-team divisions, either north, south, east, west, whatever, and then when Texas OU leave, it'll be easy to just go from the 7 to 2 16 divisions.
Yeah, I think it's par for the course. I mean, because isn't it a rule that
if you got 12 teams,
more
at least 12 got to be
12?
divisions.
Yeah. So, I mean, here in the Big Ten country, it's been 2 17 divisions: Big Ten East, Big Ten West. I'm glad they. A little sidebar: when the Big Ten really became the 14-team conference and split into divisions, the 2 division names were Leaders and Legends. That lasted all of 2 years, and they got roasted universally throughout the conference. So they finally decided, okay, let's go East and West. Which, yeah, East and West. But yeah, so 2 17 divisions, yeah, that's pretty standard. And then, once Texas and Oklahoma leave, 16 divisions, yeah, I think it'll be standard, pretty nice.
What does your gut stand right now tell you about Texas and Oklahoma staying in all this time?
They won't. That was easy. They won't.
See, no one believes that they're going to stay for the full time.
No.
I mean, it's we're talking what the numbers say, $75 million per Texas and 75 for Oklahoma. That's a lot of money to us commoners. But there's a way for them to, I mentioned it a few shows ago about paying out over 7 years, announcing it as it's being paid. But, I just don't see it. I'll be shocked if it happens. I just don't see it. And if it happens, I'll admit that I'm wrong. Okay. All right. What we're going to do here, guys. I'm going to give y'all a break for a quick segment sponsored, but I'll mention a few things. And then, your favorite time, I'm going to talk about U of H football, deposits again. But after we come back, after I do my little solo screen, Tamer Knight has joined us. So I'm going to come back from the break. We'll have a foursome here, and then hopefully Andy will join us in a few minutes after that. So, gentlemen and lady, I'll see you in a few minutes. So here we go with this, and this segment is sponsored to you by Steve Saxenian and the Saxenian family. I am Kris Gardner, of course, of the Houston Roundball Review. Just going to talk about a few things as usual. And I want to say this, that, Steve, don't hate me on this, but I'm going to mention this as well. Little Rice tidbit. Tomorrow, January 22nd, Rice University's R Association is inviting all Rice letter winners to the Rice versus Charlotte men's basketball game, which tips at 2 p.m. Central. Stop by the R Association table located in the lobby of Tudor Fieldhouse to pick up your new R card. Contact Nate McGill at 713-348-6916 or email Nate at Nate, McGill, MCGILL at rice.edu. So see, folks out there, I can talk about Rice and other schools besides U of H. So don't hate on that. There you go, right there as an example. Houston Cougars, alums, and football fans, lock in your seats for 2022 with a season ticket deposit for only, Mr. Gibson, for only $75. The deposit will be applied toward the final cost of the 2022 season tickets. Fans can email tickets@uh.edu or call 713-GO-COUGS, 713-462-6647 during regular business hours. Lock in your seats for the 2022 Houston Cougars football season and be part of all the excitement as the Cougs stand ready to compete for another conference championship before heading into the Big 12 Conference. Score big with Houston football. Same great seats for every game. Earn priority points. Flexible payment plan options. Exclusive invitations to Houston football events. Priority access to postseason tickets. Priority access to single game tickets and pre-sales. Special pre-sale ticket offers to special events held at UH Athletics facilities. Once again, Houston football fans, alums, fans, call 713-GO-COUGS, 713-462-6647. You can put your money down to lock in your seats for the 2022 football season with a season ticket deposit for only $75. Tamer Knight, get ready, because I'm going to ask you if you're going to shell out that $75 for your Houston Cougars football tickets. This segment was sponsored by Steve Saxenian and the Saxenian family. All right, let's do this, gentlemen and lady, as I try to figure this out on the fly here. Tamer, are you ready? He's around, so she's going in when she can, because I hope she heard me asking her about the money of the $75. But James, U of H football got Shiner commitment. Shiner, what's his name, young man? Big Will, you're gonna love this.
Okay.
Running back and defensive tackle. Shiner High School, 6 feet 1, 6'2", maybe 260. Okay, 260. What's his name? Like Doug Brooks. Let me pull it so I can pull it up here. He's great on the line, defensive tackle, but he's also quick and running. He's a running back. He did both, Will. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Here we go. If I pull it up somewhere. Where is it? Help me out, James. I just pulled it up somewhere. I lost it. But yeah, he's Shiner. He has a brother who's still in high school, and he might not a package deal, but he might be leaning toward U of H as well. He's getting bigger programs also. But just thoughts on a running back / defensive tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I know Kris and I were talking about this a little after Tuesday night's UH basketball game. I mean, it's a nice skill set to have. Obviously, you're not going to have a guy play, both ways all the way. But I was saying I can see Houston, using him primarily as a defensive lineman, but then coming in, in goal line situations, maybe as like a fullback type who, an extra body to block. Occasionally they'll hand him the ball off, something like that. Just since he has that skill set and capability, I mean, they'll definitely try to maximize that, because we saw that with Marcus Jones this year, how Dana Holgorsen used him in a variety of ways. So I think, they'll experiment with him, and I'm interested to see what's happening or what will happen. Yeah.
He's 6 feet 260, plays on the interior, but he's got quick enough feet to get it done. Also, offense on the goal line situations. I think James may not be old enough to know about the fridge, William Perry, but what about that? A two-way player, Shiner. I'm not sure what classification that is in Texas. It's not, I don't think 5A or 6A, but still. What are your thoughts on a 6 foot 260 young man with quick feet who can get it done on both sides of the ball?
6 foot 260.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, Houston's offered. He signed.
He committed.
He committed.
Right, James? He committed. Yep.
Now is he 2022, 2023? What year?
He's 2022. His brother is 2023. His brother's a 4-star.
So he's all right.
So yeah.
See,
Doug Brooks and his brother is Dalton Brooks.
You telling me that leads me to believe that it is a package deal. They want the 4-star. So let's get the older brother this year in hopes that helps us in recruiting little brother next year.
I mean, because they were the first to offer him a ship back in 2020 was U of H.
Yeah, that reeks of package deal to me. It does. And can I go sidebar? I know this is so off topic, but the Lakers are losing to Orlando tonight by 8 at halftime. And I don't know if you had the Charles Barkley guarantee, but if they lose to Orlando tonight, I'm not a component for calling for people's jobs. I do not wish for people to lose their jobs. However,
you want to say it? Want me to pull it up?
If they lose to Orlando tonight, I will almost with certainty guarantee Frank Vogel will no longer be the coach, and it will be David Fizdale.
You kind of, I almost certain, blah, 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 blah. Come on, Will.
Yeah, you like that,
Come
right?
on. If they lose to Orlando has the worst record in the NBA.
Yes.
By a good 3-4 games now, you know.
Yes.
And they're injured. Well, I know Jalen Suggs came back, but still, some of their key young guys are banged up. But yes, you want to do it?
I'll do it.
All right.
Guarantee.
Yanez, you ready?
You can hear me?
Yes, we can. All right, I'm going to have to take her down. So, did you hear that guarantee there, Andy?
I did.
Do you agree with it? If the Lakers lose tonight to Orlando, Frank Vogel will be, well, Will, what is it? Is he going to be fired tonight or tomorrow?
Tonight.
Okay,
tonight.
Andy, what do you say about that?
I absolutely agree. I got to double down with Will. I guarantee Frank Vogel won't make it. I mean, he won't leave with the Lakers back off the game.
Guarantee.
8 wins on the season?
They have 8 wins. Yep.
If I'm
Orlando
not mistaken,
has 8 wins.
Like 5 worse than the Rockets, or like worse than the West. Actually, it might be 6.
It's 6 now. Rockets have 14. I think Detroit has 11, maybe 12. So Andy's joining us. Tamer, I think, is getting ready. She's adjusting the camera. Tamer, give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Oh, she turned off the camera. Because I want to talk to everyone about the NCAA convention, the results of that, but also, and well, since you said this to me, Mr. Kevin Ollie.
Yes.
Let's talk about Mr. Kevin Ollie winning his arbitration case. And the arbitrator said, UConn, within 10 days, y'all owe Mr. Ollie $11 million.
Straight cash, homie.
$11 million.
10 business days.
Tamer, she drinks her water. That's no problem. We're all good. We're all family. But in case the rest of my family has not heard or read this, I just want to read some comments from the arbitrator, Mark Irvings, about his decision to award the $11.2 million to Kevin Ollie that UConn must pay within 10 business days. You quote, UConn's dismissal of Kevin Ollie was predicated on an incomplete investigation, inadequate process, and ultimately a collection of unproven or minor isolated infractions for which termination was far too severe a sanction. The entire decision was tinged with UConn's self-interest of avoiding additional institutional penalties and escaping the obligation to pay Ollie the amounts agreed to in his contract. Another major structural deficiency of the NCAA process is that representatives of the member institution have the right to sit in on all witness interviews. This is despite the fact that the institution itself is supposedly a potential target of the investigation. In contrast, a coach such as Ollie, who is the focal point of the investigation, is not allowed to have any representatives in the interviews or to even suggest potential witnesses to be interviewed end quote. Thoughts on that? Because I got some more stuff, more quotes from the arbitrator. Will, I know you didn't like part of the little dig you took at Urban Meyer, but I got to read that too. Here we go. Irving noted UConn fired Ollie for cause when other coaches accused of similar conduct hadn't been fired, let alone with cause. Quote, at the Ohio State University, football coach Urban Meyer was cited for a level 3 violation when he arranged a call between a prospect and his former quarterback at the University of Florida, Tim Tebow. Meyer was not disciplined by the NCAA or his institution. At UConn, just a few months after Ollie's firing, women's basketball coach Gina Auriemma arranged for NBA star Kyrie Irving to visit his house while recruits for the women's team were present. Pursuant to the NCAA's discretion, UConn issued Auriemma a letter of admonishment, but no discipline followed, end quote. But yet UConn, Kevin Ollie did some of the similar things, had Ray Allen call a few recruits. That was it. They fired Kevin Ollie, didn't fire Gino. Will, Tamer, Andy, what are your thoughts on all this, man? Tamer, you're on mute. On mute. There we go.
I was waiting to see what everybody else was gonna say, but not really. My opinion.
Say it again. I'm gonna give you full screen. Oh, look at that shirt you got on there. Oh, look at that.
That was
Final Four shirt.
It's not really surprising to me, in my opinion. I think it's good that he won the settlement and he's gonna get paid out the rest of his contract. This is a society we live in today. I'll just say that.
Do you really think UConn's going to pay all $11 million?
I mean, why wouldn't they?
Oh, thank you for saying that, Tamer. Panel.
Why would
anybody want to jump in on that? Why would UConn pay the $11 million, James?
You're not getting anything from Ollie right now. So I don't want to spend, if I'm UConn, I don't want to just have $11 million just go into someone where he's doing nothing for me right now. So I'm sure they'll try to find other loopholes and stuff because they're not going to be happy to pay that.
Andy, why wouldn't UConn want to pay the $11 million?
Similar situation. I mean, it's essentially throwing money down the drain, but honestly, kind of like Tamer said, it's a settlement, and it was said that they have to pay. Honestly, I can't think how could they wiggle themselves out of not having to pay.
Will.
Yeah.
How can UConn avoid paying the $11 million?
Oh, there's a slight chance they can file some legal. There's a legal way to do it. It's slight.
They can appeal the arbitration.
They can appeal it,
but the chances of them winning the appeal are very slim.
Very slim. Yep.
But I'm also going to say to y'all, UConn's in debt. UConn, I think their deficit last season was like $47 million.
Yep. So
I'm not sure, unless Gina's going to go into his wine collection money, they got $11 million to pay.
Well, let me clarify. I don't think he's going to get $11 million right up front. I think they could work out maybe a payment plan.
Why would he do that?
Yeah, why would he do that when the arbitrator says they must pay the $11.2 million within 10 business days?
Wow. Okay, 10 business days. Never mind.
I think.
Cool.
Go ahead, Andy.
I was just gonna say, like, I guess the only way to postpone having to pay them would be to argue the outcome that was made. But even then, I mean, I'm trying to see that. To me, that just seems like punting it. But even if they aren't able to overturn a decision, they're gonna have to pay, regardless, wouldn't they?
Right.
They're gonna have to pay. They're gonna figure out something because, and one of the ironies of all this is Kevin Ollie's an alum. He's a UConn alum. And did you see read one of his quotes yesterday was, I still have love for my alma mater and I love all that. And he won a championship there as a coach. I think Kevin Ollie's name at UConn is mud. Okay. So it's easy for him to take the high road because he won. He won the arbitration case. But I'm not sure Kevin could step foot in the state of Connecticut without having some repercussions. What are your thoughts on that, Will?
Yeah. And more importantly than that, he got his money, but they hit him with a show cause penalty.
Which ends, I think, in the summertime. Yeah.
And it ends in July, but for the last 3 years, I mean, he's coaching overtime elite now, but they besmirched his character to the point that he couldn't get hired anywhere.
Yep.
Anywhere.
Very true.
It's crazy. So
I laugh at all of this because it's fascinating to me, and he had good lawyers, good attorneys who came through for him. So good on them for getting it done. But okay, as touched on by the arbitrator, Mr. Mark Irvings, he was critical of the NCAA, as many of us have been for, oh my gosh, who knows how long. Let me pull it up here because I had to talk about Mr. Ollie and the result. Where is the quote? Because I want to get the quote here and we can just go from there. I believe she's at the Division III school. Her name is Betsy Mitchell, athletic director at Cal Tech. Quote, why are we still trying to stick together? End quote. That's at the convention, the meeting of the Division I, Division II, and Division III schools. I agree. Why are all three divisions trying to still work together? Division I, especially the major programs, they have nothing in common with, hell, the G5 programs in Division I. So the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of decentralization, basically. 801 to 195. D2, D3 schools not happy because they're not getting a larger piece of the pie from the March Madness money. But James, do you agree with that quote? Why are they still trying to stick together?
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, there's not much logic other than, the financial aspect, which you brought up, trying to get piece of pies from the bigger, events. But I mean, they really, D2, D3 have nothing to do with D1 in most cases. And so there's not a ton of reasons why I can see, why it just doesn't make sense.
Tamer, let's see. Okay. Greg Sankey, he's the SEC commissioner. He's a co-chair along with athletic director Julie Cromer from Ohio University. They're co-chairs on the quote unquote Division I Transformation Committee, which is comprised mostly of athletic directors, athletic administrators, and university presidents. They're going to meet every week for 6-7 months to formulate a plan of what they want to do at Division I. Tamer, Will, James, Andy. Do y'all think there's going to be a subdivision of Division I, which is basically Power 5, and Power 5 that kind of moves on away from everybody else? Because the autonomy that has now been granted by the Division I schools, they can do what they want to do now on the Division I level. So if they want to say we want all our members to have full scholarships for every student asset. Tamer, some Division I programs, looking at you, TSU, looking at you, HBCUs, they can't do that.
No.
So Power 5, what if it becomes Power 5 only? What if it becomes what is like we have in football here in Texas, James, Tamer, Andy, in high school. 6A, 5A, we got large group, large enrollment, small enrollment, something like that. Will, could you see that happening?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Should it happen?
Yes. Yes.
Tamer, do you agree with that? Should it happen? I agree. Yeah.
Well, I don't think so, because I mean, then that just kind of takes away from collegiate sports as a whole, because now you're like, in high school is acceptable because, you know, different districts are, you know, larger than others, or that for that matter only. But separating the conferences, or taking Power 5 away to make them the higher above, I don't think that's fair to other athletes, especially if you're looking at it in the sense that, you know, some of the athletes from D2, D3, they're looking to get to that Division 1. So now does that make it harder for them to reach the next level?
But that's just
James?
my point.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
But that's just it. It's already been done. Division 2, Division 3, Division 4. So it's just another layer of it.
James?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that you brought up that like I found fascinating in the Sports Illustrated article you sent to us is just like the huge budget difference. It talked about, you know, Power 5, their median budget's $123 million. Group of 5 athletic budgets around $37 million, and $16.7 million for FCS. So I mean, there's already a huge difference there. So like you said, they can put in these requirements where they're gonna make it where these schools can't pay. So, and I do think that we will see some sort of Group of 5 separation or Power 5 separation at some point.
Andy?
No, yeah, I agree. I feel like if the Power 5 conferences have the ability to do it, they have the resources, the money to do it, the TV contracts, and all power to them. Go ahead and do it. Now, it sucks from the viewpoint if you're not a member of one of the Power 5 schools, one of the Power 5 conferences. But I mean, kind of James hit on it a little bit right now, where, to be honest, it already kind of is. It's the Power 5. It's everybody else, especially when it comes to the biggest sport of them all, when it comes to college football. I mean, Cincinnati, they were an outlier. It took them 2 years, or honestly 3 years of building a program, and even then they still had a lot of breaks along the way to get into crack the top 4 as a non-Power 5 school. And outside of Cincinnati, they might be the only G5 to ever do it, to be honest. It's certainly depending on until they restructure the playoff format, but that's not going to happen. You can already see the line divided between Power 5 and non-Power 5. And once the American Athletic Conference loses Houston, they lose Cincinnati, they lose UCF, it's just going to be, the gap will be much more wider than it already is.
And this is for the panel, because I'm not sure of this. I think U of H's athletic budget is currently on par with some Power 5 programs, right? I mean, I'm thinking of, Kansas, maybe somebody like that, some smaller program, or hell, Vanderbilt, some of those smaller Power 5 universities that are, their athletic programs are just, especially football wise, they're just glad to be in a big boy conference. Thoughts on that? Because then I got another comment, but Tamer, go ahead.
I mean, when you're comparing U of H to bigger D1s, excuse me, can you really compare them to a bigger D1? I mean, gosh, please, Cougar fans, don't beat me up, but I think, are we comparing them to a bigger D1 or a Power 5 D1?
Well, if they move to the Big 12, that'll help their money. They'll probably spend more than they make until more alums buy football tickets. Hint, hint there. But
all right, but if we're just considering a factor like that, can we really see them making the move to compare or even be in a Big 5 school?
Well, they'd be more. They're close. Well, I'll say this: the money they have spent and probably will continue spending puts them closer to the level of other Power 5 programs. They're never going to be on the level of Texas, A&M, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama. But they'll be, around the tier with Oklahoma State, Utah, California, Oregon State, other schools like that who are in the Power 5. But, panel, NABC Executive Director Craig Robinson, quote from yesterday after the vote, the NABC commends the NCAA membership for approving a new constitution and empowering each division to chart a course for its future. This is an important step, but more work must be done. The NCAA's new governance structure must allow individual sports to determine what is best for their student athletes. Accordingly, we believe it is prudent to grant Division I men's basketball broad legislative and policy autonomy to make decisions based on the sport's unique opportunities and challenges. No longer should a common sense policy for men's basketball be rejected because it doesn't work for another NCAA sport. The NABC looks forward to collaborating with Division I leaders to develop a structure that will sustain the growth of the sport that generates most of the NCAA's revenue, thereby benefiting all student athletes, end quote. Thoughts on that, Mr. Gibson?
Man, you're gonna get me in trouble, man. I'm trying to stay in the good graces of my people down there. But yeah, I'm just going back to. I'm looking at two things here. You mentioned at the athletic budget differences. I can only speak for what the school I'm most familiar with, Ohio State. Most recently, I think it was 2020. They brought in $234 million and spent $215 million. So for and it sounds crazy, one of the few years, it turned a profit.
Yep.
It turned a profit. $19 million, a little under $19 million. Most years, people, they when I say this, they look at me like, there's no way. Most years, Ohio State doesn't turn a profit in years past. And now with COVID, it's going to be.
And that's, James, Tamer, that's the Ohio State University that does not turn a profit.
Yeah.
So you're pulling in, think about U of H. U of H, James, they haven't pulled a profit. They're pulling money from student fees and all those things. They're struggling to make a profit. They hope that the money they get from the Big 12 will help narrow their deficit. But, once again, it's going to depend more on supporting football, donations, and other things like that. So if the Ohio State University, one of the biggest athletic programs in all of Division I sports, doesn't make a profit year in, year out, why are we doing this? Why does it still happen? James.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, like you're saying, if the top dogs aren't getting anything out of it, not getting a nice stack of cash year in and year out, then certainly not, any schools below that. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, you see the reasoning for wanting changes, just because what's happening right now isn't working.
And the issue, I want to bring Andy in with this. The issue is, or one of the issues, bigger issues, is March Madness is, as the quote from Craig Robinson, is the NCAA's cash cow. But what can these new autonomy policies do? Because, Bob Huggins suggested, I think around Media Day, that the Power 5 should have its own men's basketball tournament, which would exclude everybody else. It would lessen, the Cinderella stories and all those things. So what could Craig Robinson do? Because they don't want to kill that cow. CBS, Turner, the $1 billion money they get from the TV deal. Mm-hmm. So what could Craig Robinson do for autonomy for men's basketball. Notice he said men's basketball. He did not say women's basketball. That's another different topic, and gender equity on those issues. But what could be done, because they say they don't want to pull away from the March Madness, the big boy, the Power 5 programs. But what can they do to have autonomy, make money, and keep everybody happy at the bigger program? Because they don't want to give the smaller schools their piece of the pie. James, Will, Andy, Tamer, somebody jump in.
I mean, one thing that I can think of off the top of my head is, we see the Big 12 SEC challenge, these interconference Power 5, one game little things. So I could see them maybe, a mid-season little tournament or something like that with Power 5, schools, something like that. That could be an option. That's the first thing that popped into my head, just because these mini tournaments are already happening. So maybe just expand that a little bit, but I don't know.
Andy?
James, that's really interesting. I had never thought of that. Honestly, when you put it that way, I guess that's one form of autonomous consequence that could be able to happen that could, I guess, would be the positive light in it. I mean, to be honest, what James just described would sound well if you had a Big 12 SEC tournament every year in the middle of the season. But, I mean, for the most part, I tend to agree with everyone else in terms of, I mean, what if they are granted that autonomy, what really can they do? Would it just be that the Power 5 can make they'll play different rules and stuff like that? But at the end of the day, I mean, whenever you first brought up of, say the Power 5, they make their own tournament, to me that makes zero sense, like you mentioned, and that's something that the TV networks aren't going to want. That's something that obviously, of course, the non-Power 5 conferences aren't going to want. To me, that ends up hurting everyone in the grand scheme of things. So it's confusing to me what would the flexibility be outside of whether it's what James proposed, which would be awesome, yeah, but outside of that, what more of the positive? What would more of those positives be?
Yeah, when Bob Huggins said it, he mentioned it was, I think, right around at Big 12 Media Day, and there was a lot of pushback when he said it. So I'm not sure how much, if it still has legs. But again, they can't forget about women's basketball. The gender equity, Title IX issues, that'd be a problem. But they have plans. I think some of the plans that NABC would like for autonomy, they want to have more control over the recruiting calendar, number of visits that coaches can make in terms like that. And of course, every sport's gonna have to deal with the name, image, and likeness. But as D-Skills H-Town said in the comments, the vote that's made everything that was unofficial reality. It's official. The differences in Division I, Division II, Division III, the power programs, the bigger programs, the G5, we've all known. We see it. We see it here in town. The differences in the programs between Houston, TSU, HBU, and Rice. Yeah. And that's here.
I'll never forget. Yeah, James, you can comment on this. I'll never forget walking into Rice and their football facility. I mean, good grief. They look like, to be honest, when I walked into Rice Stadium, it looked like it was like we went back in time. I mean,
yeah.
The press box at Rice was terrible. You have to walk all these sets of stairs, to be honest. The railing on walking up the press box, if you leaned on it, it literally tipped. It's night and day difference between the University of Houston athletics department and the stuff they have, certainly for when it comes to for men's basketball, women's basketball, for football. It's clear it's night and day, head and shoulders above any other university in town.
Yeah,
go ahead, Tamer.
I was gonna add, I mean, I don't think any university in the city is competing with U of H, and it just kind of, you guys can say University of Houston, they're not making a profit. But if you think about them not making a profit, then it just kind of gives you that thought in your back of your head about like, what about these other schools that are in town? Clearly, we know they're not, making a profit, or they're not able to invest in their facilities, or it's different in general.
And I'm pulling it up from an article that Dana O'Neill wrote with The Athletic last month. One of the quotes, or one of the reasons for the NABC, the basketball coaches wanting more autonomy, is they're tired of football making decisions for them. So from Nova head coach Jay Wright, quote, "A lot of the decisions made about basketball are being made by football people, lumping in basketball with all the other sports. We're trying to be authentic about it. This is a big business, and we create the revenue for the NCAA, so we just want a say in governing our own sport," end quote. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I get it, but I mean, I get you want to control your own sport, obviously, but it's just so hard with everything that's happening and just all the current things. But I get the desire to want to have autonomy over your own sport, and not allow other outside factors to sort of affect the decisions that are being made within your own sport.
And here's a counter to Bob Huggins. Quote from Craig Robinson, again, the executive director of the National Association of Basketball Coaches. "It's not like we're going to go and change the NCAA tournament, but the NCAA tournament is the golden goose, and yet there's not been much reinvestment in our game. You can't be an authority and not control your own budgets," end quote. Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to listen to the full quote.
Okay, the full quote. "It's not like we're going to go and change the NCAA tournament, but the NCAA, well, read again. It's not like we're going to go and change the NCAA tournament payouts, but the NCAA tournament is a golden goose, and yet there's not been much reinvestment in our game. You can't be an authority and not control your own budgets," end quote.
Who said it?
Craig Robinson, the executive director of the National Association of Basketball Coaches.
When I hear that quote, I guess what the argument that's being made is that essentially they want more input on specific rules, and when it comes to rule changes, that depending on who gets granted autonomy, would it be the conference individually? Would it be a whole set of conferences together? It sounds like he has a specific kind of gripe with maybe it was the way the rule changes get changed now.
He does, and their gripe, here we go. They want more say-so in scheduling, the recruiting calendar, staff composition, and most importantly, budgetary oversight.
That's the big difference.
So, James, what are your thoughts on that? They don't agree with the one-size-fits-all model that has been the case for years.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, there's so many differences sport by sport. I understand, wanting that, and I do think there needs to be change. I'm just not exactly sure how they're going to work it out, and I don't have the perfect answer, but it's definitely, there's lots of conversations that still need to be had for them to figure something out, because I do get, the one size doesn't fit all argument.
All right, we're going to wrap up in these last 10 minutes with U of H men's basketball discussion and keep everybody on the screen here. This hoop segment, U of H hoop segment, brought to you by Steve Saxini and the Saxini family. James, Andy, Tamer. First things, Coach Sampson mentioned it yesterday, Thursday. The conference made official today that the Houston-Cincinnati game at Fertitta Center that was postponed December 28th will take place, has been rescheduled to Tuesday, March 1st. think it's Tuesday, right, James? I think it's Tuesday, March 1st.
Yeah.
Game time and network for TV network have yet to be announced, but that will make U of H have 3 straight home games, each about a day apart. A game on the 27th, the 1st, and the 3rd, I think, something like that. And then they'll end up with the last game being at Memphis on the road on March 6th. So thoughts on that? Coach Sampson said he wanted to get the game. He wanted to play the game. You know, it's a lot of games, three games in 5 days. So the chances are they're all at home. So the chances are they may not win all 3. Coach Sampson's okay with that. Needs the games. Competition is good for the team, all those kind of things. Saturday, tomorrow, January 22nd, the Cougs host East Carolina. Be the only time these two teams face each other this season. U of H, the game will be at 5 p.m. Central Time. U of H is 5-0 in the American. First place. It's on the 4th time in program history they've have a 5-0 start in conference play. One note I like is that Fabian White now has, in his U of H career, 105 career wins to rank 2nd in school history behind Michael Young's 109 wins. Gentlemen and lady, I think it's safe to say Fabian White is going to get that record. He'll pass Michael Young. He'll get 5 more wins at least. So he'll be the leader in the clubhouse for that. Fabian only needs 1 more home win to set the Fertitta Center record, Tamer. With 44 victories during his career, White is currently tied with Bryson Gresham, who enjoyed 43 wins from 2018 to 2021. Yes, Bryson Gresham. How about that? He's at TSU, grad transfer. Some numbers, some good numbers. This is kind of interesting here. James, you know it. Tamer, you may not know this, but Andy chime in as well. In the win over South Florida, Tajay Moore scored, what was it, James, 13 points? But during
I think so.
Part of his 13 points, he surpassed 1,000 points in his college career. He had 882 at his previous school, Cal State Bakersfield. He's now at 1,007 with the points he got thus far at U of H. But Fabian White only needs 39 more points to get 1,000. And Josh Carlton needs 43 more points to get 1,000. So Fabian will be the 49th player in Houston history to get 1,000. Then Josh will be the 50th player. So how about that? It's all coming together. Thoughts on that, Andy, about so many guys having a chance to reach 1,000 points in a college career?
To be honest, what it shows me is that this team, and obviously, of course, the big story for the University of Houston this season has been the injuries. The injuries top down. It seems like every game there's someone else that rolls an ankle or something. There's always something. But obviously, of course, with Marcus Sasser out for the season and Tremont Mark as well, what it shows me is that this team is still, they're not young. They have senior leadership across the board. Obviously, to be able to reach those accomplishments, you have to been able to have played for a while. And you guys, I'm joining late, so I don't know if you guys have already touched on Penny Hardaway, but
oh yes,
I know the comments that the outbursts that he had last night, and obviously, of course, when that happened, I'm sure I saw a lot of Houston fans piling up, especially with the expectations that Memphis had at the beginning of the season, just with the number of high recruits they had. But I think that's the difference between much better, especially when it comes to a veteran team. And you look across the board, they have Kyler Edwards, Fabian White, who's been here for forever. I know Kyler Edwards hasn't been here. This is his first season, but he's not a young player. Same thing goes with Tajay Moore, Josh Carlton. They have experience. They know how to play, and I think that's really what has propelled Houston, even after they lost both Sasser and Mark, to continue to keep just finding ways to win. And to be honest, I feel like that's the story of the season for the University of Houston team. And it has allowed them to stay afloat since losing Sasser and Mark.
Well put, Andy. That's what we mentioned that during the earlier part of the show, because for the U of H fans who I know they love hating on Memphis and taking shots at Memphis because Memphis does the same thing in return to U of H. But just imagine the injuries resulted in, let's say, because of the injuries to U of H, you didn't have senior leadership of Fabian White, Giles Carlton, Tazi Moore, and Kyler Edwards. Instead, you had to play freshmen JVA Francis, Robbie Armbruster, Ramon Walker, 30 minutes a game. Do you think U of H would be 16-2? No. Okay, so let's be real about that. So experience does help, and it's important in college basketball to have veteran leaders to win ball games. Let's be clear on that. All right, we're gonna wrap it up, wind it down here. U of H, ECU. ECU is 0-2 on the road. They beat Memphis at home last Saturday. They're 2-3 in conference, 11-6 overall. Andy, I don't really care about the spread in the game, but ECU, Tristan Newton leads them with 17.9 points a game and 5.1 assists. Vance Jackson is at 12.2 points and 5.8 boards. And then Brandon Suggs is third with 10.1 points per game. Brandon Johnson leads the Pirates with 6.9 boards per game. We all know it. James, Andy, Tamer, I'm sure. Last season, in the only meeting between the two teams, ECU beat U of H on the road, in Greenfield, North Carolina, 82-73. My kinfolk, Jaden Gardner had 21 points and 15 rebounds. He was a problem for U of H this whole time at East Carolina. He's now at Virginia. Tremont Robinson-White added 17 points and hit 5 threes in the game. ECU shot 47% in that win over U of H, which was the program's first victory in the history of the program over a team ranked in the top 5. And it ended a 33-game losing streak versus opponents in the AP top 25. U of H is ranked top 10, James, for the 37th consecutive week being in top 25 poll, which is a school record. Keep extending that. Do you think Coach Sampson and the staff have brought up last season's loss at all for motivation to this year's team?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they mentioned it, but I think this team is already pretty motivated with, we talked about a few weeks ago, when all the injuries happened, how, all the outside noise was, the season's over, all this. So I think they and talking to, Coach Sampson and players, they've heard it. They already, they feel like they have more to prove now, given, you're without two of your best players. So I think they're already motivated. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it would hurt to, mention it. And I'm sure it's been brought up, but I don't know how much they've, dwelled on the loss.
All right, it's that time. Will.
Yes,
Andy, James, Tamer, U of H, ECU. Anybody want to go out on that limb and guarantee a Houston victory?
I'll do it. I guarantee.
Go out on the limb for victory. I think it's got to be a clean sweep, 5-0, guarantee, and we're just calling victory.
Okay. Well, Andy, do you know the spread?
I don't know the spread, but I'm going to feel very confident considering where Houston is from a health standpoint, which I'm not close to wood, so one of you guys might need to knock on wood first 5 minutes, see if they don't suffer another injury. But it looks like this is going to be, at least for the past few days, about as healthy as the roster can be. I don't know. It seemed like Kelvin Sampson himself was surprised that Jamal Shead came back as quickly as he did. I think Houston at home, like you mentioned, Chris, that this is a team that knocked them off last season. I'm sure that it's been brought up a few times, and especially considering how similar, obviously Houston's not top 5, but this is the first time that they've cracked top 10 in the AP poll all season long. I'll go Houston. I guarantee Houston wins over 12.5. I'll take them 12.5 win.
So it is 12.5. You found it?
I have no idea. That's the Andy's sports spread.
Okay. Will, have you found it?
Let me see.
I'm going to pull it.
Guarantee.
And let me just say this real quick. Vegas is impressive. Okay. First things first, none of us expected Jamal Shead to play Tuesday versus South Florida. We all thought, Coach Sampson did too, that Jamal's ankle injury was going to keep him out for at least this week, if not 2 weeks. And then we found out after the game that Coach Sampson saw Jamal and shoot around running him down the floor and thought he could play. But I was told by a friend of mine, 2 hours or so before the game, that the line on the game was Houston by 18.5. At that time, I thought there's no way in hell, no Jamal Shead, that Houston's going to cover that 18.5. Houston won by 19. Okay, so if anybody can pull up the number, I'm going to guarantee Houston victory. I don't know about the spread, but it's just uncanny how Vegas seems to get the line right more times than not. Tamer, are you going to guarantee a Houston victory over East Carolina? Unmute yourself, Tamer.
I always do that. Sorry, but I said absolutely. I don't even see why we're talking about a game from last season. Also considering, yes, U of H.
Tamer, do me a favor. Adjust the camera because we got the sponsor banner covering your face. Can you adjust the camera or duck or something?
Wow, I didn't even notice it was like cam, but.
Well, I mean, it's because we got 5 people on the screen, so you know.
Okay.
There we go. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why we're talking about a game from last season, considering U of H does have they have been injury prone this season, but I mean I think they have a lot of depth on their bench to fill in the gaps. So I'm definitely picking U of H to win.
Are you guaranteeing it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Guarantee.
Okay, we got Andy, James, Tamer, guarantee. Will.
That's 19.5 is the spread I found.
Woo!
I don't know about that, but okay. What are you going? Are you going to guarantee a win though, Will?
Yeah, I'll say that. I'll say it. Yeah, Houston should win.
Okay.
Guarantee.
Is anybody going to step out on that limb to say Houston's going to cover 19.5?
No.
You know, I'll go on that. I'll go out on that limb. I think they got it.
All right.
Guarantee.
There you go. And that's how we're going to wrap it up. Andy, you first. How can folks find you and interact with you on social media?
Sure, they can follow me on Twitter at Yanez_5. They can check out my daily, well, not daily, but my random tweets with facts of the night, of the day, and every now and then UH coverage, local coverage of anyone that lives in the Pearland Friendswood area, and just other stuff across the country. To be honest, like we said, local name, global perspective for all of us here at Post Talkin.
Tamer, how can folks find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TKnightSports. That's TKNIGHT Sports. Also tune into AT&T Sportsnet Southwest, where I am the show host for TSU Sports Show.
And it seems like your most recent show is a lot of fun. I saw your tweet. I got to watch it, but I got to. Ty Bridges is not a fan of Houston food.
Yeah, she thinks Alabama food is way better.
Okay, yeah, she hasn't been at enough Houston spots. Yeah, and tell Ty I said that too. Yes, no, come on, Ty. She needs to get out more around the city. James, how can folks find you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at JDM2186, and then all my coverage and work is on theDailyCougar.com.
Willy Gibson, how can folks find you, sir?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WillGibson7. On Facebook, Will Knows, the Will Knows Facebook page. And just to finish up, Frank Vogel heard me calling for his job because the Lakers went on a 17-2 run to start the third quarter. And they now lead 101-89, 6 minutes left in the game.
Okay, well, see, the players care enough about Frank to keep him around. Maybe that's it. They're willing to play for their coach. Isn't that a good sign? Maybe
It is.
You know.
Now, if they fired Frank Vogel, do you guys really think that'll make a difference?
No,
it's not his fault. No, No, he's a scapegoat, clearly.
Yeah, clearly he's a scapegoat. He didn't assemble a team. And I am Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. See me there on Twitter, ZHR Review. As always, thank you very much for tuning in to the show that's available on YouTube at Houston Roundball Review's channel, Folks Talk Sports on Twitter, and on Facebook as well. We're looking for people to advertise on the show so we can get on Roku. Do that as well. But thank you as always. And one note real quick, the Houston Roundball Review has been credentialed to cover the men's Final Four. Got that word yesterday. Waiting on word from women's Final Four. Yeah, I'll apply to both. See if I get both. But yeah. So again, advertisers.
Hydrated this time.
I'm not going to both.
Oh, but where's the men this year?
Men's in New Orleans. Men's in New Orleans.
So
But
Minnesota,
I'm planning to go to Paisley Park in Minneapolis. That's the plan because it's Paisley Park. But I want advertisers and sponsors to know Houston Roundball Review gets approved to cover both Final Fours. How many folks can do that?
And
reach
the
out to
Super Bowl
us.
as well, correct?
And the Super Bowl as well. Yes, sir. So got all of that covered. So
Put
truly,
it out there.
sponsors, hop on this train, this program. Houston Roundball Review is going places. We're going to do big things 2022. Got 3 different live streams that you can be a part of, advertise on. Post Talkin Sports, Let's Talk Houston Rockets, and the AdMax Corner covers football. So hit us up, hit me up on the email as well, kgardner@thehr.com, or just one of us on Twitter, and we'll give you more information. As always, thank you very much, panel, for taking time out to talk sports as we do. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you sometime next week. Rockets Warriors, 9 o'clock tonight. Tune in for that too. Take care.
Have a good weekend, y'all.